Hi, it's Father Dave again. We're continuing our discussion about what's normally in philosophy called the problem of evil. We talked a little bit about the argument about the existence of evil or suffering and the claim that that would be incompatible with an all-good, all-knowing, all-powerful God. And we discussed about how if good can come out of evil, that shakes that argument and undermines it. Before we go into our discussion more deeply about how it is that good can come out of evil, there's two distinctions that we need to make here. The first one is really what is evil in itself, because it can be very misleading to think of evil as a thing, as an entity. In fact, St. Augustine posits that evil is not a thing but a lack of something, right? It's a privation of the good. Just as darkness is not a substance, it's the lack of light. Just as ignorance is not a thing, it's a lack of knowledge. Poverty is not something, it's a lack of something. So he's saying that the same is true of evil. And that would be how it would be possible that God could create the world. The world is good. He didn't create evil, but what evil is the lack of perfection in something, the lack of total goodness in it. Okay, so St. Augustine, thank you for that helpful distinction. The second distinction that we need to make is to understand the difference between basically two different kinds of evil. We could talk about the moral evil, a moral evil, or a natural evil. Right? So a moral evil is the result of decision. Okay, so what we would call sin, evil. If I commit some injustice against you, I am committing a moral evil. Okay, or if I neglect to do what I ought to do, what I'm responsible to do, that's a moral evil. So there's a big difference between that moral evil and what we would call a natural evil. Right? Someone gets sick, okay? Someone gets injured. A tornado happens, flood, okay? Anything that is not the result of human decision would fall into a different category, right? It's a different kind of concept that we're talking about, moral evil versus natural evil. In our discussion, we'll be talking mostly about that second type, that natural evil. Because the question about why God permits moral evil, it really centers around our human freedom. Just to kind of let you into the discussion about that a little bit. Why does God allow sin, right? Why does He allow me to deny Him or to hurt others, and in so doing to break His law and so on? And mostly we believe that the reason why God permits sin is to preserve our human freedom. If we weren't free to sin, we would basically be programmed robots. If we only ever chose love, what is good, right, we wouldn't have real freedom. And then, is there such a thing as love without freedom? In what sense would we call it real, authentic love if we weren't free to choose it or not? So the whole idea that we are made in God's image and able to love, able to choose love, means necessarily that we are also able to reject love or to choose evil, to sin. So that the existence of moral evil is really linked to our freedom of decision, our capacity to choose for ourselves. Without that capacity, there's no such thing as authentic love. Okay, so those are our helpful distinctions that will help us as we continue on in our discussion as to how could good possibly come out of these natural evils. Why would God want to create an imperfect world? The first is that evil is not a thing in itself, but privation and the absence of good, and that there's two different kinds of evil that we want to keep in mind. The moral evil, we'll be talking mostly about the natural evils. Thanks for listening. God bless you.